Thank you, Tony. Good morning. My name is Emily Cooperman. I'm the chair of the Historic Designation Committee of the Philadelphia Historical Commission. Welcome to our meeting. Before we get started with the meeting, I will turn things over to the Executive Director of the Historical Commission, Dr. John Farnham, to say a few words about the meeting.
Good morning. Thank you. And hopefully you can all hear me. The meeting today is being recorded, and by participating in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. The recording will be available later today or perhaps tomorrow on the Historical Commission's website, www.phila.gov, that's gov/historical. And there you can find the recording for the meeting. You'll also find everything you need to participate in today's meeting. The public meetings page of the website provides the copies of the nominations, any public comment received by noon yesterday, the agenda, of course, and eventually the minutes from this meeting will be available there on the public meetings page of the website. Every agenda item includes an opportunity for comment. If you'd like to comment, you will need to raise your hand using the raise hand feature in Zoom. Once you've been acknowledged by the chair to speak, you will have to unmute yourself from your end using the audio toggle in Zoom. And if you happen to be on a standard telephone, *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute. The committee typically makes its decisions by unanimous consent, but if there is apparent disagreement among committee members, the staff can conduct a roll call vote of the members. The committee makes recommendations to the Historical Commission. Those recommendations are non-binding. The Historical Commission itself will make the final decisions on the nominations. And finally, the Historical Commission has adopted guideline for conduct at its meetings. And if you're unfamiliar with those, please take a look. Those guidelines include order of presentation, time limits for presentation, and other important matters related to the conduct of these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get into our agenda, I'm going to we'll do introductions for the members of the committee and have the members of the committee each say a few words about who they are and what their background is and what their professional position is. Let's start with Susanna Baruco.
Good morning, Susanna Baruco. I'm a historic preservation consultant in private practice, and I also teach in the historic preservation program at Jefferson.
Elizabeth Milroy.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Milroy. I'm an expert on the history of parks and public spaces in Philadelphia, and I'm a lecturer in the Historic Preservation Department at the University of Pennsylvania.
Bruce Laverty.
Bruce Laverty. I'm an adjunct professor at Drexel University, where I teach architectural history.
And Jeff Cohen.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Cohen. I'm also an architectural historian, and I teach at Bryn Mawr College in the Growth and Structure of Cities Department.
Thank you. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm Emily Cooperman. I'm an architectural and landscape historian and historic preservation consultant, and I sit on the Historical Commission as its historian. Before we move into our agenda, I want to thank everyone for participating today, those of you who made time to be in the meeting, and to thank all of the nominators and the staff for working with nominators and for writing nominations themselves. And a few words about what we do here. As John Farnham mentions, we are an advisory body to the full commission. We make a recommendation regarding the nominations that are on our agenda about whether or not, in our opinion, the property meets one or more criteria on the register, in the Philadelphia Code for designation in the Philadelphia Register. The commission then, as John Farnham mentioned, is the body that designates or not. So today what we are doing is providing a recommendation, allowing the public to participate in the nominations process, and essentially providing advice to the commission on based on our experience, our scholarship, and our expertise on whether or not we think that the property meets one or more criteria, which may not be the ones that are in the nomination, but they normally are some of those that are in the nomination. As John Farnham also mentioned, we follow guidelines for the conduct of meetings. With respect to this meeting, the guidelines are essentially that the nominator is invited to speak first and has a maximum of 5 minutes to speak to us, to address us. Property owners are then invited to speak if they wish, and they have a maximum of 10 minutes to address us. And then we invite members of the public who wish to comment on the nomination to speak with a maximum of 2 minutes per participant. These are guidelines. They're not hard and fast rules, but generally speaking, we keep to them as the most appropriate means of giving everybody a chance to speak and to maintain the appropriate flow of the meeting. Once the nominator, the property owner, and anyone member of the public who wishes to speak has concluded, we then turn to our discussion and then usually move to a motion to recommend or not regarding the property that we've just been discussing. I think I'll leave it at that, and I think we'll move into our agenda. The first nomination on today's agenda is 459 Roxborough Avenue, the Galilee Baptist Church, and I believe that Dan Shachar-Krasnov will be presenting it to us.
All right.
I'll turn this over to Dan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Shachar-Krasnov. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Please elevate Reverend Richard Brown to panelist, and I will read a brief overview. This nomination proposes to designate the Galilee Baptist Church at 459 Roxborough Avenue as historic and listed on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places.
Dan, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. Can you put up something other than your desktop?
Apologies for that. Let me redo my screen share here. There we go. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Apologies for that. So I'll read this overview. Nomination proposes to designate the Galilee Baptist Church at 459 Roxborough Avenue as historic and listed on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places pursuant to section 14-1004-1 of the Philadelphia Code. The nomination contends that the Galilee Baptist Church satisfies criterion J by exemplifying the cultural, social, and historical heritage of the community. The Galilee Baptist Church has been an important Black community institution in the Roxborough-Manayunk neighborhood for 125 years. The staff recommends the nomination demonstrates the property at 459 Roxborough Avenue, the Galilee Baptist Church, satisfies criterion for designation J. I'm the nominator, so if there are questions for me, I'm happy to take those, and Reverend Brown is here to speak on behalf of the congregation.
Do any committee members have any questions for Dan at this point? Not hearing anybody. Okay. Then why don't we, oh, go ahead, Lily, sorry.
Do you want questions about the substance of the nomination at this point, or do we want to wait to hear from the Reverend?
Why don't we go ahead and hear from the Reverend?
Okay.
Is he, I'm sorry, I don't,
Yes.
has he been elevated? Oh,
Good morning, everyone.
good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with this committee on today. Um, I want to first of all thank Dan Krasner for the tireless effort that he has put into creating this presentation, and to thank the committee. The Galilee Baptist Church is excited about the opportunity to be nominated or to be designated as a historical site within the city of Philadelphia. Uh, I will not take up my entire 10 minutes. And with that being said, I would just say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for being here. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your support for this effort. All right. Did you have a specific question you wanted to address now, Lily, or should we invite members of the public to speak? Either I'm happy with either, whichever one you would prefer.
Oh, I think it's actually, yeah, a couple of questions, but let's wait for the public because they may ask the
Let's
same
do that.
question.
All right. So at this point, I would invite anyone who would like to speak to this nomination to please raise your hand, and we can hear your comment. First is Oscar Beiser. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Oscar Beiser, Keeping Society. I just want to thank the staff for nominating this church. It was an interesting nomination, and it was also cool to see the Trower connection. I had done a nomination on the Trower building in Germantown, and in fact, I don't even know that I've seen that photo of him before, so it was interesting. And just thank you for that, and for the congregation for keeping up this historic building. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Stephen Peitzman. Good morning.
Good morning. Stephen Peitzman with the East Falls Historical Society, and I and the Society support this nomination. It was a pleasant surprise to see it on the agenda, only because being so close to Roxborough and doing a good deal of shopping there, I walk around a lot looking at buildings, and this small church has several times attracted my pause because I think it's a handsome little building, and it's great to know that its current congregation supports its historic recognition, as well it should. So again, just pleased to see this. Thank you to the staff, to Dan for putting the nomination together.
Thanks. Next is David Traub. Good morning.
Good morning, David Traub, representing Save Our Sites. Just to underline what Dr. Weitzman said, and I think the building does have architectural distinction that wasn't cited in the nomination, but I think this is a good example of asymmetrical balance, the way the little tower-like element on the side balances the gabled section, the larger gable section to the other side. Interestingly, the tower-like element cuts off the gable, but it's a very compact and handsome building. Certainly, we support its the nomination and for further designation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Please raise your hand. I am not seeing anyone else, so I think we can turn to our committee discussion.
Actually, I can start off by picking up on something that David's just said. I don't know if you noticed further down in the nomination, there's a photograph that shows a cupola on top of the entrance tower, which is really striking, and it kind of adds to a triangulation of features.
I think it's page
There
7.
it is.
It is.
Makes a big difference in a lot of ways, because it kind of creates the asymmetry is further reinforced, but in some ways those three elements, the entrance, the pedimented entrance and the the round-headed window and the cupola all kind of tie the parts together in a way that I missed today.
And if I can jump in, that was one of my questions, because it also makes this a much more outstanding and self demonstrative church. I mean, it makes it a very, very proud and noteworthy church in the neighborhood, that spire, and it couldn't have been cheap to build.
Yeah.
And I recognize that the nomination doesn't put forth a design criteria per se, but I was also really curious to know whether we have any information about comparable buildings. I mean, the founding pastor was from Virginia. Galilee is a very common name for Baptist churches in Black Baptist churches in the South, I believe. And I'm just curious if anyone's aware of any similar buildings. It's a wonderful and certainly to my eyes, a very singular building. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting that they went to a first-class architectural firm in Kennedy and Kelsey, a pretty distinguished group.
Yeah, it was rare that Black congregations were able to afford to do that historically.
Well, that was my other question. That the chart at the end with the list of occupations was somewhat helpful, but kind of vague as to the founding the founding leaders of the church. And I would just be curious, because the point is made that the Black community in Roxborough was relatively small, certainly compared to the 7th Ward. Were they working in the factories? What were they doing? I mean, it looks like several of them, certainly several of the founders, were working in service as coachmen, and I'm wondering what the connection might be with some of the mill owners, the factory owners in the neighborhood, lots of really wonderful questions raised by a wonderful building.
Yeah, but to which the answers may be very elusive.
Exactly.
I was pleased that we were delving a little bit into the social and geographical history of the neighborhood. There was one thing that I was curious about. Let's see if I can find it. In a description when the building was being built, they called it Gothic. Did anybody pick up on that? Let's see, the latest in real estate. It was on our page 15. The new edifice, which is expected to be ready for occupants in March, will be Pennsylvania granite sandstone trimming in Gothic style of architecture. Oops. I guess there was a change in thought somewhere pretty close to the beginning of the building.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how you define Gothic.
Well, you could bend over backwards, I guess.
Yeah, right, exactly. You never know
It was late Gothic. Late Gothic.
Very late. Yeah.
I had a question for Dan. I think this is a great nomination, and I'm glad to see it and thoroughly researched. What is it that made you select this particular building?
The congregation approached the commission
Great.
seeking to be designated.
Fantastic. Okay, great.
I will say just quickly that I did make an effort to identify more of the folks. The church has done has wonderful record of the earliest participants in services and in participating. So I did make a significant effort to try to identify as many of those folks as I could through census records and city directories and such. But quite a few of them proved elusive in terms of tracking them down.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It does look a little.
But I want to applaud the fact that you were able to track down so many of them, Dan. It's not necessarily very easy to do. That's a lot of work. Having done that kind of thing. So, the only thing I will say is that I don't want to bring in too much of a discord note, but there were some aspects of the description that bothered me a little bit. I mean, I think the fact that you talk about the steps, but you didn't mention the fact that they're concrete, which I think would be something. I mean, you can see it in the photograph pretty clearly, but it's the kind of thing that I would think that your successors down the line would want to know. And same thing with the windows in the basement windows on figure 3. I couldn't tell whether they were replaced or not just because of the size of the photograph. It looks like that is glass block, but I can't quite tell, and it might have been good to call that out. But those are those certainly don't detract from clearly all the great work that you did on this. But I think those are the kinds of details that might be useful to a staff member down the road.
Point well taken.
So that's the reason for my mentioning
At least on street.
I think that's it for me. I think is there any further discussion, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Excuse me. I move that 459 Roxborough Avenue, the Galilee Baptist Church, be added to the register of historic places based on criterion J.
Second.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes by unanimous consent. And again, thank you, Reverend Brown and Dan Shachar-Krasnoff, and look forward to seeing you at the commission meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is 580 Pelham Road, 330 West Upsall Street, Wolstenholme Twin. And I believe Heather Hendrickson of the staff is gonna present it to us.
This is John Farmer. Just
John.
before Heather will present it to you, but
yes,
just very, very briefly, I wanted to note that I live on Pelham Road. My wife and I have owned a house there for 25 years. I do not have a conflict in this matter. I live about 2 blocks away, but I will, just to avoid any appearance of conflict, stay out of this discussion. So if you have any questions of a technical nature, others are here to answer those, including Leonard Reuter.
okay,
Thanks.
thank you for that. Very good. All right. And I guess we'll hear from Heather.
Yes, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
If we could please elevate the Preservation Alliance, who are the nominator. If Jim Onesti is here, or anybody representing Jim Onesti, who is the property owner, please also raise your hand to be elevated. This nomination proposes to designate 580 Pelham Road and 333 West Upsall Street, known as the Wolstenholme Twin, and listed on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places. The nomination contends the property satisfies criteria D, E, and J. Under criterion D, the nomination contends that the Wolstenholme Twin embodies distinguishing characteristics of the Flemish Renaissance Revival style. The nomination documents that the architectural firm of Boyd & Boyd designed the twin house and argues that the house satisfies criterion E because the architectural firm's accomplishments have significantly influenced the development of the city of Philadelphia and the region. Finally, under criterion J, the nomination asserts that the Woolston home twin, as part of the larger Pelham real estate development and housing prominent Philadelphia businessmen, is representative of the early economic, social, and historical heritage of the Westbound area community as it transitioned from a large private estate to a modern suburb of Philadelphia. The staff recommends that the nomination demonstrates the property at 580 Pelham Road and 333 West Upsall Street satisfies criteria for designation D, E, and J. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will reiterate the Heather's remark that if there is anyone representing the property owner in the meeting, please raise your hand so you can be elevated. And I'm not seeing any hands at the moment. All right, well then why don't we go ahead and hear from the nominator.
Good morning, everyone. This is Hannah Stark, the Director of Policy and Communications at the Preservation Alliance. We are really pleased to submit this nomination for what really is a landmark to the southern entrance of the Pelham development. As Heather stated, this is an important early twin residence developed by Wendell and Smith and designed by Boyd and Boyd in a really distinctive example of the Flemish Renaissance Revival style. We really think the building, its development, its design, as well as its early owners of the prominent textile manufacturing family represent the heritage of Westmount area as it transitioned from larger private estates to a modern suburb of Philadelphia. Also, I just wanted to note that Oscar Beiser, the author of the nomination, is also on the line if you have any specific questions, but we're happy for your consideration today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, why don't we go ahead then, since we are not getting a response in regarding the ownership of the property that both Heather and I have asked for, I think we can go ahead and open it up to any public comment. So if anyone would like to speak. And before we call on people, I just would note that there is a lot of public comment on the record, and we have reviewed it. All right, so, but anyone who would like to speak now, please raise your hand. All right, first is someone who is signed in as building and planning. If you could please identify yourself further a little bit, that would be great.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry about my name. This is Greg Pritchard speaking, and I would like to comment. Good morning. I would like to comment in enthusiastic support for the designation of these two homes, this twin dwelling. It's a wonderful example of Wendell and Smith's work in the mid-1890s, which centered around the Philadelphia neighborhoods of Overbrook Farms and Pelham. By that time, the firm was an incubator for talented young architects emerging from the city, including the Price brothers, the Boyd brothers, Keenan Mead, and Horace Trumbauer. Each of those architects were given the freedom to work from Wendell and Smith's so-called kit of parts, materials like Pompeian brick, Wissahickon schist, and terracotta ornamentation, and to mold them into forms with unique character. As a result, entire neighborhoods built from the same materials emerged from the diverse minds of the region's most promising young architectural talents. Now, this twin was among the largest, most visually exuberant, and most prominently placed homes in Pelham, a gateway to the neighborhood's southernmost boundary, close to Upsall Station, and a taste of what a visitor, resident, or a prospective home buyer could find on the blocks within. It is also unique. Unlike many other designs made for Wendell and Smith, it was never duplicated here in Overbrook Farms or elsewhere. Its preservation, in my opinion, is crucial to maintaining the character of the neighborhood, and its history and significance clearly warrant its inclusion on the Philadelphia Register. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this morning.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next, I think we have Allison Weiss.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I just wanted to
Morning.
say that I'm from Solo Germantown Civic Association, a neighboring community organization and one who shares Germantown Avenue, and we are fully in support of this nomination. And it was wonderful to learn about this um, very wonderful building. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would wish to speak now? Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands. So I think we can turn it over to our discussion.
Wonderful house, very solid nomination. Thank you. I learned a lot, and I've always loved this house and been curious about knowing more of its history and the design story. And my only question is, what was it about Flemish that people loved so much? But this
Very
certainly,
exotic.
well, very exotic, but it also sort of announces, because when I think of Flemish architecture, you think of or Northern Netherlanders, let's say, all of those house slash warehouses in some place like Amsterdam, just sort of announcing capitalism on the rise, and this kind of merchant, the success of the merchant lifestyle, and this kind of it is the gateway to that for this development.
Yeah, I almost think of the Queen Anne as a gateway drug to doing this sort of thing. It mixes some classical with some medieval, and it's really, a remarkably free palette that the architects get to play with. And they are, the same firm, Boyd and Boyd, could do compositions in colonial revival or, Tudor, and they just had a wonderful command of design that made them really harmonious. There was one little thing, and maybe Oscar can straighten this out for me. I think that you said almost certainly by Boyd and Boyd, and if there's some question about that, it'd be good to understand what it is. But I wanted to add that this is, as Greg mentioned, this is such an important introduction to the whole development. I'm appalled that someone would think of tearing this down. It's key. It's at the front door, and it really states you're about to enter something that's quite different than the things around you.
Yeah. I think for that reason, I would want to add criterion H, frankly, because I think it really is as Greg mentioned, and as you just said, Jeff, it's a gateway. It is. I mean, you cannot pass this building without it making its strong impression on you, and it's probably because of that location, and it does mark a transition, that gateway aspect, and I think that H is entirely appropriate for this particular building because it's intentional. It's intentionally a place there to get your attention and to convey all the things that you were just talking about and that Greg talked about.
Do you feel like there's enough in the nomination to support H already?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
I don't know that I really have anything to add. I agree with everyone, and I think Pelham is a special community, and I think that this building does announce that you're entering someplace special. And I thought it was a well-written nomination.
Yeah, Wendell I was going to say
Sorry, go ahead, Bruce. Go ahead, sorry.
Wendell and Smith knew what they were doing in terms of their siting of the buildings, whether it be in Overbrook or in Wayne or here. And this is the last of their big developments. The other two were 15 to 20 years earlier. And they had perfected it so that when you stepped off the train, you knew that you weren't in Kansas anymore. And this has a very different feel than Chestnut Hill, and I think it was very conscious that this is not a colonial revival house that greets the person that has stepped off the train. That they realized that there was something different here, and kudos to them for giving leeway to their architectural stable to play.
Well, and also it occurs to me that if as is mentioned in the nomination, the properties were bought by Drexel and Stotesbury in 1893, that would have been one of the last things Drexel did, because he dies in 1893.
And just thinking, Lily, of what you were saying about the mercantile houses of Amsterdam and things like that,
right.
It kind of declares, a kind of inventive but middle class language and village in some ways. And it's not like there are whole neighborhoods of step gable kind of suburbs around. The Flemish Renaissance is not something that you should bet the house on, but there was a lot of freedom to work within a range of vocabularies that are mixed in the development. And all of them kind of declared a kind of modest upper middle class status.
Yeah.
The photographs that and Wendell and Smith were great at documenting their buildings as they went up, and Greg Pritchard's thank you is responsible for saving a lot of those through Radnor and the Athenaeum. But it's very easy to forget how much more prominent the houses were before there was full growth of the trees in the neighborhood. And you see these vast swaths of lawn, and all the details are visible in a way that they haven't been for 100 years or more.
Well, I'm just thinking and looking looking at the front page of the nomination and realizing that there's a kind of Palladian window on the side facade, which is a wonderful sort of, it's almost a kind of witticism that they'd add. It's I guess it's the south facade, south
facing, yeah.
Southeast.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Flanders, but are terracotta roofs, shingle roofs, are they popular there? Or?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Steve Feitzman has his hand raised, and I think we can go ahead and hear from him if you would like to make a comment about this.
Yes, just briefly. There was one more Wendell and Smith development in the early 20th century. That's Queen Lane Manor.
Yeah.
I live in the midst of it, and it comprised mostly Tudor Revival homes, singles and twins, some with a good deal of arts and craft elements. Certainly not as notable as the better known Wendell and Smith efforts, but it was possibly the last such development that they were involved with, 1905 to 1910. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I apologize. I seem to be having an allergy attack, so. Are there any other comments from either the public or committee?
I only just have to add that I thank you, Greg Pritchard, for signing on and for your comments and for what you've done to kind of save Wendell and Smith for posterity. But I just love the way they cited the building. I'm just kind of looking at it on Google Maps and how they kind of placed it on this triangular lot so that no matter which side you go, you're addressed by these great gables. It just really is, it's pretty special. Sorry, I just wanted to add my point about this building to the record.
I have to say that overall it was a really excellent nomination. The only thing that I will say is I think it would have been helpful to mention the other secondary buildings that are presumably non-contributing as such. there are a couple of other little buildings on the property, and it would have been good to call them out as being present but non-contributing, just so to eliminate any confusion.
Other than the garage, were there other?
Yeah, there's a couple little. There's a shed, a pretty large shed, and then I think a gazebo or something.
Oh,
None of which are historic, as far as I can tell.
is the garage not part of the
No, the stable.
stable? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, the stable is, and
Yeah.
that's described and called out, but there are a couple
Yeah.
of other little buildings on the property, on the two
Oh.
properties. Oscar, could you speak to that?
Yeah, I'm sorry that wasn't mentioned, but there was no intent for those to be included. So just
Well,
to make that
that's
clear.
what that was
Yeah.
what I assumed, but I just thought it would have been
Yeah, no, I
nice
duly
to call
noted.
that out. Okay, thank you.
And
No, I mean,
I did want to
overall,
ask just one question. If you guys had seen this effect of the L's coming off the building and the way that they do, even Wygant mentions it in his diary, which is funny. Of all the things he could say about the building, he brings up the L's being at an angle.
well, because it was so unusual, I guess. I mean, the other stuff was remarkable, but he probably hadn't seen anything like that before. It's a really remarkable feature of the design, actually, the fact that they go off at an angle like that.
Yeah, and they're much more exposed.
Yeah,
Oddly enough, most of that is usually not visible from the street.
right.
It also gives more light and air to each unit, right? Because instead of sharing a party wall, they each have their own. Yeah, it's a great design element.
Yeah.
So, Oscar, while you're here, is there some uncertainty about the Boyd and Boyd firm's authorship?
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
It's mainly just documented in the surveys of Pelham that they were the designers of it. Like I didn't find any like primary records saying that they designed it in there. Like we don't have their records.
Okay. And another question was, maybe it had to do with the photograph, but the stable, you said it was buff Roman brick, and it looked like redder and fatter than that. Is the stable correctly described as buff Roman brick?
It does look like Roman brick. Maybe buff is a little bit maybe it's a little darker than buff.
Hmm.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
I couldn't really, I didn't go on the property, so I couldn't really get super close to it.
Yeah, it's kind of hidden back there.
Yeah, and I'm not walking on there, so yeah.
Good.
Based on
Good.
Okay.
One other thing that I wanted to call out there, a great juxtaposition in Figure 21 that shows the twin houses on Germantown Avenue with the stepped gabled features. Those are price designs. Those are well-priced designs. The drawings are at the Athenaeum for those. And there's very similar commercial buildings with that kind of a roof line. They were built as residential buildings on Germantown Avenue, just above Erie, at Broad Street. That started out as residential, and they're just barely visible behind it. But yeah, price was involved in that commercial expression. Well, it's now a commercial expression.
Yeah, that's a stunner.
Yep.
Yeah.
One thing to watch out about is Hazelhurst and Huckle cannot be spelled, but first it goes L-E-E-L instead of E-L-L-E.
I did want to just say one thing. Somebody mentioned about like adding criterion H. I do document in the nomination that they also one of the Boyds designed another corner building, the Pelham Pharmacy, and then with I just talked a little bit about like the Flemish revival being used at these two corners. So I do think there is some documentation on this sort of design being used as being particularly distinctive at an entry point to Pelham. So I didn't mean to speak out of turn, but there was mentioned earlier.
That's okay.
Cool.
That pharmacy is very important. Yeah, good, and it was a good point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of,
Is there anything else anyone else would like to talk about at this point? Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. I would propose that 588 Pelham Road and 333 West Upsall Street be added to the Philadelphia Register. Let me find the criteria page here. Under criteria D, E, H, and J.
Would someone like to? Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes by unanimous consent. Thank you very much. And yeah, and very, very nice nomination. Next on our agenda is 132 North 10th Street, the Tetlow Manufacturing Company. And I think Alex Till of the staff will be presenting that to us.
Correct. I'm Alex Till with the staff. Good morning, everyone. I will read a brief overview for this particular project, but first, could we elevate the nominator, Annie Langzhao, to panelist for this particular review. I would also add that we did send all requisite notice to the property and the property owners as listed in the OPA database. We have not heard from them directly, so I'm not sure if anyone here is representing ownership. If they are, they could also raise their hands and make themselves known. So this nomination proposes to designate the property at 132 North 10th Street and listed on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places. The 5-story brick commercial building was constructed circa 1885 by Henry Tetlow as the factory of the Tetlow Manufacturing Company, an early cosmetics manufacturer. Nomination contends that the building satisfies criteria for designation A and D. Henry Tetlow introduced a number of influential changes to the cosmetics industry in the 19th century, including his discovery of the use of zinc oxide as a non-toxic and inexpensive base for face powders. For its association with Tetlow and the history of the cosmetics industry in America, the property satisfies criterion A. In addition, the property satisfies criterion D because it is a remarkably intact example of late 19th century industrial buildings that embodies distinguishing characteristics of both the Italian and Romanesque styles. The staff recommends that this nomination demonstrates that the property at 132 North 10th Street satisfies criteria for designation A and D.
Thank you. And I will repeat Alex's call for a property owner who might be in the meeting or representative property owner who might be in the meeting to identify themselves so that we can hear from you. Please raise your hand if there is anyone in the meeting. And I'm not seeing anyone. All right. Excuse me. Sorry. Give me just. Forgive me. Okay, well then why don't we go ahead and hear from the nominator?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This nomination of 132 North 10th Street to the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places came from an assignment from the Historic Preservation Program at UPenn and is located at the northwest corner of 10th and Cherry Streets in the historic core of Chinatown. And the building is a significant architectural landmark, as well as a reflection of Philadelphia's evolving social and urban history. As Alex had mentioned, it was constructed circa 1885, the former site of the Tetlow Manufacturing Company. It's a prominent example of late 19th century industrial architecture, and as a 5-story building above a streetscape historically characterized by smaller row houses and lower rise commercial buildings. It does have strong visual presence within the neighborhood. Its design combines characteristics of a factory with refined Italianate and Romanesque detailing and is a remnant of the economic prosperity and industrial growth in the city. Also, at a time when many comparable industrial structures had been demolished or heavily altered. This building remains a rare surviving example of this architectural typology in the neighborhood. This property, I believe, also reflects the transformation of this district from a mixed residential and industrial neighborhood to one that was connected to immigration, manufacturing, and the growth of Chinatown. Its long history of changing ownership and use reflects a broader pattern of urban development and demographic change within the city. And also as a former cosmetics and perfumery factory associated with Henry Tetlow, the site connects to the emergence of modern consumer culture and the increasing economic influence of women in that time period, leading up to the suffrage movement. And I believe that the building serves as a tangible reminder of the colorful history that shaped this part of Philadelphia from an industrial, social, and cultural perspective. And I thank the esteemed members of this committee for considering my nomination for 132 North 10th Street. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation and your participation. Okay, I think we'll now open it up to any member of the public who wishes to speak to this nomination. Please raise your hand and we can hear your comment. First is David Traub.
David Traub here again, representing Save Our Sites. I want to say that this is one of the most splendid nominations I've read in recent memory, and the work of a student in the Preservation Department of the University of Pennsylvania. Thank her very much. It certainly supports criterion D, and she amply supports that in her narrative. First of all, she speaks of the two arches on the corner segment embracing the round-topped windows below, and then she mentions the incredible corbelled brick cornice, simple in a way, but doing its job very well. She mentions the ornamental elements up and down the building, the terracotta string courses. Finally, she states correctly that the corner element underneath the arches is really a tower, okay, anchoring the corner. And it seems that the architect, whoever he or she was, intended that because he raises that segment of the building. Well, it looks about like 2.5 feet above the section of the building, the segment of the building extending back along Cherry Street. So what you have there is a beautiful tower. Yes, there you see it there. The corner segment under the arches is raised just slightly, but enough to do its job above the extension of the building down along Cherry Street. So it's a spectacular piece of architecture that needs to be designated. Finally, just as an aside, I want to add that about 2 years ago, Save Our Sites presented a proposal to the Chinatown CDC and John Chen, its executive director, proposing that we light up many of the historic buildings in Chinatown along Race Street and here and there, but including this building. So we propose that this building, at least the corners tower-like segment, be illuminated in the nighttime sky, which would further emphasize its grandeur. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next is Stephen Peitzman. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Next is Oscar Bizert. I apologize.
Oscar Bizert, Keeping Society. I just want to thank the nominator for putting forth this nomination. It's such a striking building, and the city used to be filled with buildings like this, and unfortunately, many of them have been lost. And this neighborhood, just a few blocks around this, is such great cultural diversity as well as architectural diversity. I mean, it really should be some kind of a district, but nevertheless, this is a great step forward, and hopefully the first of many nominations for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Stephen Peitzman. Good morning again.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. And it is a great building. What strikes me is that it's 5 stories. I mean, in this period of time, the 1880s, so much of Philadelphia beyond housing was 4 stories, factories, schools, all sorts of things. So this is not unique, obviously, but it's still a little unusual. And although those sources may not be available to answer a question I'm going to ask the nominator, or 2 questions. Did it have an elevator? And was there anything special about the 5th floor? Was that used for offices or in some ways just part of whatever the manufacturing process was for zinc oxide-based cosmetics at the time?
Thank you, Stephen, for that question. Based on some of the historic maps that I saw, for example, the fire insurance maps, there seemed to have an elevator shaft. Although I haven't been inside the building, so I haven't been able to see that, but I believe there was one. And also, because Henry Tetlow was living next door at 134 North 10th Street, there was a connecting, the buildings were connected. And I'm sorry, you were asking about the cosmetics. Sorry, I didn't get that last part of your question.
No, never mind that. No, it's I look forward to. I have not read the nomination, but I look forward to doing so. All of these nominations. I'll have to take a week off from my other activities, but I'll get to them.
Thank you.
I think at this point, is there anyone else who would like to comment? Please raise your hand. I am not seeing anyone. All right, I think we will now move to committee discussion.
I'd just say bravo, Annie. This is a wonderful nomination. Well done. And a fabulous, a building that I've walked past so many times and I really need to stand back and take a look at it.
Hard to do sometimes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lily. Appreciate it.
Just to echo that, I'm delighted that we're getting some nominations from Penn grad students. That's really a great source of help in terms of nominating buildings. I did have a few quibbles here that I wanted to go through. Is this nominated under criteria A?
Yes.
It seemed to be, it's checked off as a box, and I wasn't sure. We're sometimes kind of reluctant to have A expand beyond all criteria. I'm not sure why this is about A. Maybe the significance that you're seeing in A has more to do with the neighborhood than the whole city.
But because of the I don't know, I think certainly in his presentation, I heard a good argument for A in terms of the changing economic trends relative to women as consumers.
Not only that, but Tetlow.
Yeah, Tetlow was fascinating.
He was significant.
Yeah, he definitely was.
In terms of the cosmetic industry, where I saw A really happening, or really supported happening.
Yeah,
very professional.
I think there's a lot of wonderful information in this nomination. Am I crazy, or am I having trouble with this? Is the exterior being 1885?
It seems quite credible to me.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't have a
problem.
problem.
It is funny because this is the kind of building that could be, the parts could be assembled out of the Peerless Brick Company's catalog.
Okay, all right.
You know, and all those little runs of decorative things. And in fact, you know, when we try to put it into a style, we end up in places we don't really want to be.
Yeah, no, I know. For some reason, I looked at it. I suppose it's the scale of the arches on top. For some reason, they were making me think that it was like 5 years later, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's clearly there by the 1887, the
Yeah, I
1887
saw that.
Sanborn.
Yeah, that was a great find. That's finding it in those aerial perspectives.
But in terms of telling the story of the neighborhood, I wanted to bring your attention back to the early atlas, the 1875 atlas, figure 15. And this was a pretty prosperous neighborhood before the Civil War. You see all these houses with big, long L's that have a quadrant beginning to them. And you even had a fire insurance survey that dated, I think, to 1825.
Yeah.
And it was for $2,500. You're not dealing with a poor neighborhood here. You're dealing with upper middle class neighborhood before the Civil War that later on became totally changed in the last decades of the 19th century, especially for this kind of commercial building. I think the word Italianate is a little bit stretched here. When we think of Italianate, we're usually thinking of things from before the Civil War, especially Italianate villas and things like this. But this is just round arch detail that doesn't really look back to either the Italianate or even to the Romanesque. It's much more a kind of industrial round arch style.
Yeah.
But what that story, the Atlas story, does tell you, I think, is that there was tremendous transformation here between 1850 and 1900 and 1910, especially. When old buildings became accommodated for new uses and new populations. So I think the social history that you're building off this atlas needs some correction here. It was a prosperous neighborhood. In fact, living on Arch Street was a pretty important address before the Civil War.
Annie, could you tell me? I didn't notice. Did Mr. Tetlow own the house next door and then buy the corner property, or did he own both properties and then demolish one? It's you always hear the story about somebody living over the store. But he lived next door, and for him to have access to that is a major point. But in terms of the development, you can see that that's a 3.5-story typical row house for the neighborhood. Did he own that before the factory was built?
I believe he purchased both properties around the same time. And then to Jeff's point earlier, it was I wasn't able to find a lot of information on the architect or the building construction or anything like that, but I did find mention in the deed of when Tetlow purchased that property that became the architectural description was that at the time it was a 4-story building is what the deed had said. So that was the only reference I found besides the map that was previously referenced.
So, do you think that he lived in that that second building there, or did he just use it as an office? I mean, was it actually a residence?
I believe
For him.
I believe he lived in 134 North 10th, according to the city directory
Perfect.
that I found from those years. Yeah.
Great. What a great nugget to have.
Couple of things to follow up Jeff's comment about how the neighborhood changed. It's important to remember that a lot of people in Philadelphia wanted to build the new city hall at Independence Square because so many wealthy Philadelphians actually lived east of Broad Street still in this before the Civil War. So that's again, to that point, it's still a fairly prosperous part of the city into the 1860s. Something that, I'm looking at those two windows on the top floor, Emily, to your point about and thinking this is kind of odd. but what was in that space? And was it, I don't imagine the proprietor walking up all of those stairs or maybe taking the elevator if the elevator was there. But if this is a cosmetics manufacturing, one of the things they have to test is how the powder looks on the face of the person who's going to wear it. And they're not north-facing windows. It's hard to read the map because we need to put map coordinates on our map. But they're not facing north, but they're bringing in a lot of light. And I just wonder, I'd be absolutely fascinated to just curious to know what that space was because those windows are so prominent.
I don't have a sense of what that was used for, but and I've also tried to get in touch with the owner. So in the 1970s, I believe, it was sold to a Chinese American family, Teresa Lee. And then in 2018, it was transferred over to a revocable trust. So I have her at, I mailed them at both addresses, but there was no response.
Yeah, frustrating.
Oh, yeah, I'm curious too.
Yeah.
And how did you select this building, or was it given to you?
It was from a pool of buildings in the neighborhood that we had to do for the documentation class with Sarah Lopez and Kesha Fong. And when I saw this building, I chose it immediately.
Good taste.
So it has so much character.
And there's a great overlay in this neighborhood of industrial buildings from the 1880s and 1890s that would make a wonderful district.
Yeah, to Oscar's point. Mr. Henry Tetlow in 1890 lived in Mount Airy. But he was building a house there at that point. On Allen's Lane.
Not Pelham Road.
The Philadelphia Inquirer in 1890 calls it Allen's Lane.
Yeah.
I will say no more.
Well, face powder paid for that.
Yes.
Just one tiny little thing. You talk about a segmental arch lintel, and you probably should think of lintels as being stones rather than arches.
Yeah.
Okay. All that said, I think if this was your first nomination, I think you did a great job, and thank you for taking the time to take your coursework to this level, because I think it's important for you, for your experience, but it's important for the city and for us to be able to recognize this building. So thank you, and well done.
Thank you all.
Yeah, and we'll hope you will do more.
Yep.
I appreciate that you included the information that was basically taking the title all the way back to the beginning, but you don't have to do that every time. You don't have to demonstrate to us that you can do that. You had to do it for the class.
But it's hard-won information. Yeah.
Yes, it is very hard-won information.
Many hours at the
absolutely
city archives.
We know. We know. All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
I will.
Go ahead, Bruce.
I would like to nominate 132 North 10th Street, the Tetlow Manufacturing Company, to the City Register of Historic Buildings based on criteria A and D.
Second.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes by unanimous consent. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, Annie.
All right. Next is on our agenda of, would anyone like to take a break, or are we all right to keep going? Not hearing any break requests. All right. The next one is 5604 North 5th Street. The next nomination, the National Bank of Olney. And Ted Most of the staff will be presenting it to us.
Good morning, everyone. This is Ted Most with the staff. I will read a brief overview. The nominator in this for this nomination is the Preservation Alliance, and I believe it was written by Kevin McMahon. I don't think we've had any response from the owners of this property, but if anyone representing the property owners are here, they can raise their hand to be elevated. This nomination proposes designating the property at 5604 North 5th Street, historically the National Bank of Olney, and listed on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places. The two-story Art Deco style cast stone bank building was constructed in 1927 and 1928. The nomination contends that the property meets criteria for designation C and D, that it reflects the environment in an era characterized by a distinctive architectural style and embodies distinguishing characteristics of that style. The nomination claims that the bank represents the shifting trends of the design of neighborhood banks away from classical models toward a more modern form known as the Art Deco style during the late 1920s. The nomination further argues that the building is eligible under criterion for designation E. It is the work of an architectural firm whose designs have significantly influenced the development of city, state, or nation, owing to the national prominence of the architects Simons, Britton, and English as specialists in designing banks, especially for small and medium-sized towns. The staff recommends that the nomination demonstrates that the property at 5604 North 5th Street satisfies criteria for designation C, D, and E.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we proceed to hear comments from the nominator, I will reiterate again what Ted said. If there's anyone who represents the property owner, is the property owner in the meeting, please raise your hand so that we can hear from you.
Ollie, can I just jump in? Ted, it's criteria for designation A, C, D, and J.
No,
is J not?
This one is C, D, and E.
Am I looking at the wrong one?
No, you're not. The boxes are not the right. The wrong boxes are checked.
Okay.
The form.
So the J should not have been checked. I'm sorry, I just noticed
A
that.
should not
I
have
did
been
not
checked.
catch that. Thank you for catching that. I
Yep.
will correct that before the commission meeting.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Sorry to interrupt.
Of course. No, it's all good. I'm sorry for the confusion.
Good.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. Thank you. All right. With that, let's move to the nominator, to the Alliance.
Good morning again, everyone. This is Hannah Stark representing the
Hannah.
Preservation Alliance. Ted did a fantastic job really doing an overview of the significance. We just really want to note that we're excited to nominate this property in Olney, which represents really the development of North 5th Street as a commercial core through the 1920s, and the use of a top national banking firm and their characteristically Art Deco design really signified the institution, growing and, achieving prominence. So really excited about this one, and thank you for your consideration. Oh, and just to note, Kevin is also on the line if you have any specific questions.
Okay. Kevin, is there anything you would like to add at this point on this? You don't have to say anything, but if you would, I just wanted to invite you to say anything. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and hear from anyone else who wishes to speak? Is there anyone who wishes to comment on this nomination who's in the meeting? Please raise your hand so we can hear from you. David Traub.
Well, I intended not to speak anymore at this meeting, but I can't resist temptation seeing this building. I wish we could nominate the rendering. I know that that's impossible, but it's a splendid piece of architectural illustration, and it shows what the building could be if it were restored to its original appearance. I hope that will happen someday. But it's a wonderful piece of architecture. We're step into muddy waters if we try to identify the style. Then again, as someone said, I'll leave that to someone on the commission. But Save Our Sites heartily supports this nomination, and hopefully the commission designates. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment? Please raise your hand if you do. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So I think we will move to committee discussion.
Well, I can jump in to say I never knew about Simmons Britain and English before.
Me
No, me
neither.
either. Oh, wow. It's a trifecta.
But it like a lot of the best nominations, this throws new light on a whole batch of buildings, and you can see how there's almost an intentional move away from the literal classical colonnade as the identification of a bank and kind of civic clothing. It's a wonderfully subtle design. I don't know if when you looked at that elevation, that perspective, David, if you noticed how the voussoirs grow in depth as they get toward the top. It has a sort of ascension that's halted by the decorative element that's right above it. But there's a great deal of restraint here, and they work beautifully with cast stone to make what might otherwise be an extremely expensive building more in the scale of expense of a local bank. And I think you're cracking the vault of some of the bank publications. Really gives us a sense that they were very much talking to each other and thinking about what was an appropriate form for a smaller bank. So thanks very much. This adds, I think, a lot of perspective to banks that we're going to see from the 1920s and 30s that reflect some of the same inclinations. One thing that I think, just in the kind of scholarship we think of as Art Deco, is we put too much emphasis on the 1925 exhibition in Paris. Some of these things were already in the works before that, and there's always already some of the inclinations that really weren't part of the inspiration of that show that are already manifesting themselves in different forms in the early 20s. I think in some ways, we have to kind of call out a more independent line of what's going on in terms of form beyond dependence on 1925.
We could fill a book with pre-1925 Art Deco examples,
Exactly.
even just in Philadelphia.
Exactly.
So I'm familiar with this bank building. I grew up at Broad and Olney, and we did our incidental shopping on Broad Street, but once a month we took a stroll down Fifth Street, Fifth and Olney. And so whether it was the pet store or the Woolworths, which was just down the block, or the branch library, which was at Fifth and Tabor, spent a lot of time there. And even as a kid, I admired this building when it was the Girard Trust Bank. And I also never heard of the architectural firm. The other surprise that I had, delightful, is the National Bank of Commerce right next to the Union Trust, Paul Cray's Union Trust Company there on the 700 block of Chestnut Street. What a confection those three buildings would have made together there. And it's a shame that became a parking lot. But I think the other thing that I think is really great about this nomination is it sort of picks out the importance of landmark structures in business cores, the satellite commercial cores, places like Fifth and Olney, Broad and Olney, Germantown and Shelton, 52nd and Chestnut, those places that were extremely active places outside of the downtown area that warranted landmark structures, both in terms of the quality of their architecture as well as how they stood out on the landscape.
Yeah, Bruce, that I was struck by the fact that there was a 69th Street bank.
There was a bank for everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the 52nd Street corner bank. I had one quick question: was why only one year for the period of significance because it remains a bank into the 1990s, although not owned by the same company.
Because of the criteria that were selected.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Okay.
It would not be appropriate for, unless it were A or J. Kevin has his hand raised, so I'll let Kevin answer the question. Kevin, you want to answer that question? I'll let you. I've answered it for you, but is there anything you want to add?
Yes, you basically just said what I was going to say. So thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'm misconstruing criterion A, since I think its significant character is kind of an enduring characteristic. But thank you.
No, I mean, if you've selected essentially a design criterion, then it has to be associated with when that design was created.
Okay.
I think it's appropriate for this building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Especially given Bruce's point about, landmarks and locations, but no, it's great.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about, this is sort of a kind of arcane observation, but it's sort of, all of these banks mark the moment where, banks are transformed in image from being temples of financial security to being kind of vaults in and of themselves. I mean, the imagery becomes, hi, I'm a vault. Don't even think about trying to get in here.
Well, yeah, but the problem was within a few years, a lot of the banks would close.
Yeah,
and they weren't being robbed. They were just dissolving.
The problem
So,
wasn't coming from inside, or
I'm
outside,
yes.
physically. So, Lily, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
No. That was the only question. Was just about the year.
Okay.
Just clarification on that. Thanks.
I also love the rendering, the contemporary rendering, because it shows you what is underneath the commercial facades to the right and the left of the building today. When I was a kid, right next to this building, between there and Albany Avenue, was the Sunray drugstore, and we spent a lot of time in there. They had a soda fountain, and if I behaved, I could get an ice cream soda before we walked back home. So didn't happen often.
It's a special treat then.
Right.
For special occasions. All right. Would someone like to make a motion, or is there any further discussion?
I can make the motion.
Okay.
That we recommend 5604 North Fifth Street, the National Bank of Olney, for listing in the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places under criteria for designation C, D, and E.
Second.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes by unanimous consent. Thank you.
Nice nomination, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That was great.
Appreciate it. All right. Does anyone want to take a break, or should we do or should we continue? All right, to continue. One more nomination.
Yep.
All right. The last nomination is 4889 Umbria Street, and I think John Farnham is presenting this to us.
Yes. Before I begin, if we can elevate Michael Phillips, who's representing the property owner, to the panelist level. And I see at least two people associated with the Ridge Park Civic Association. The association is the nominator, as well as the author of the nominator, present in the meeting. If those people who will be representing the nomination can raise their hands, then they can be elevated as well. And it looks like people are being elevated.
Okay, we'll wait for a minute for them to be elevated. And then we will invite them to speak in accordance with our guidelines. And then Mr. Phillips will be invited to speak. All right, I think.
I apologize, it's taking longer than I would have expected. So I see we have at least two, and I think Oscar Beisert is also waiting to be elevated. Okay, looks like he has been.
Okay, I think we have Paul Toner, Oscar Beisert, and Cheryl Feldman. And I will let you decide who speaks first, but I assume it's Ms. Feldman, but go ahead.
Okay.
And keep in mind that the guidelines stipulate 5 minutes total.
And before they speak, a quick presentation from the staff.
I apologize, John. Please go ahead.
No, it's all good. So this nomination proposes to designate a portion of the property at 4889 Umbria Street in Roxborough and listed on the register. Buildings associated with the former Manioc Plush Manufacturing Company stand on the site. The nomination proposes designating the older buildings along Umbria Street, the larger one-story manufacturing building, and the smaller power plant, and that's what you see on the screen. Now, the nomination excludes from its boundaries the newer buildings along Lamont Street and the newer beer distributorship building and vacant land along Parker Avenue. It's a very large site. The nomination contends that the older Manioc Plush Manufacturing Company buildings are significant under criterion J as, quote, a representative and tangible expression of Manioc's late industrial era textile economy, end quote. The nomination claims that the site is significant under criterion E for, quote, its association with William Elmer Siebert Dyer, a specialized industrial architect and engineer whose work contributed to the development of Philadelphia and the larger region, as a national center of textile and light manufacturing in the early 20th century, end quote. And the nomination also asserts that the complex of buildings satisfies criterion H, quote, owing to its distinctive siting, scale, and industrial character, it represents a long-established and familiar visual feature of the Manioc neighborhood, end quote. Toward the satisfaction of criterion H, the nomination highlights, quote, its terracotta parapet signage reading Manioc Plush Manufacturing Company, end quote. The staff recommends that the nomination demonstrates that the nominated portion of the property satisfies criterion for designation J, but not criterion E or H. It's the staff's opinion that the nomination does not present compelling evidence that Dyer was a designer whose work has significantly influenced the development of the city, commonwealth, or nation, or that the industrial buildings represent an established and familiar visual feature in the neighborhood. And with that, I turn it to the chair of the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, I apologize for not forgetting to invite you to speak. All right, now we will turn to the nominator. And again, please remember that we have our guidelines are 5 minutes in total for a nominated presentation and 10 for the property owner.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of our executive board and our preservation committee, and Marlene Schleifer, the president, is also on the line. The Plush Factory has been an industrial landmark in our neighborhood for 100 years. Neighbors have worked in this factory. There are some still living in the neighborhood and their descendants. And we have been in discussion about submitting this property for designation for 4 years. and we submitted emails to the commission showing our interest. During 2025, we were approached by the developer for a by right IRMX development. We attended the CDR meeting. There were 2 of them, and we did not oppose the development. We have been in discussions with them about things that neighbors would like and have been pleased with their responsiveness. We submitted a letter in support of the developer for a large state grant for improvements, which
Forgive me for interrupting you, Ms. Feldman, but this, if you could summarize the gist of this, that would be very helpful, because we can't make any comment about what you're speaking about, and it's not really germane to what we do here. Forgive me for interrupting you.
No problem. I'm just trying to provide a context. So, we, in terms of H, area residents and businesses see the Plush Factory as a really important landmark in our neighborhood. It's a wonderful representation of the neighborhood's industrial past. And this picture doesn't show the signage, but its prominence on the street, the fact that it is one of the few remaining industrial businesses that's historic on that part of Manayunk. It just is a unique architectural structure in our neighborhood that is a visual reminder of the significant industrial history of Manayunk Roxborough that neighbors are very proud of. So we are in support of H for your consideration. We also were impressed that the architect specialized in textile mill architecture, which was so important to Manayunk. And so the case that was made for the architect's role as a designer of functional, purpose-built industrial environments tailored to textile mill production was something that we thought was relevant. We do not want to intercede at all in the development plans. There is a garage in the back of Plush that we would not oppose if it was removed. We want to keep the building itself as something that represents for us our industrial past. And with that, I will cede my time to Marlene if she'd like to say a few words.
I don't believe that
She was not elevated.
was
Yeah.
elevated.
Oh, okay, no problem.
She does not have her hand up, but
Okay. Okay.
we could unmute her to speak without elevating her.
And Dr. Farnham, unless Oscar Byler has any comments he'd like to add, I don't believe Rich Park has any further comments on this nomination.
Right.
Marlene did raise her hand, and she is unmuted at this point.
Okay.
We can't hear you. We can just barely tell that you're speaking, but we really can't hear you. Well, I'm afraid we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Oscar, was there something you wanted to add briefly?
Very briefly, as the author of the nomination, I did want to recognize that with the Keeping Society, that this was a building that was brought up a number of years ago and continually brought up by the Civic Association as one of a number of buildings that they wanted to nominate in the future. So it was not related necessarily to this development. And when the staff had asked to correct the boundary to just the building itself and the power plant, we immediately complied with that. There is, again, no wish to interrupt the present development that's happening on the site. I do just stand by the fact that it is a very distinctive visual feature of the neighborhood, especially that it's there on that sort of podium almost, and it's at the incline, and the signage as well. Sometimes all it takes is a permanent sign to make something really stand out and represent. While it served the industry for a short time, it was the end of a long period of plush manufacturing in Manayunk. And so I do think that all three of the criteria that were selected are worth at least considering. If it ends up only being J, that's fine, but that these are things to consider. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I think with that, I will invite Mr. Phillips to go ahead and speak. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner Cooperman. And good morning, members of the committee. Michael Phillips on behalf of the Equitable Owner. I understand the committee's purview, so I will be very limited in remarks. First and foremost, I want to note that we are not opposing the designation of the main manufacturing building and power plant. That front Umbria and those buildings have been preserved and incorporated into the redevelopment plan from the outset. So, this project doesn't propose to erase that historic resource, but it preserves and maintains it while developing the very large parcel and providing, over 350 needed units to the city's housing stock. Our concern that we have is just with the scope and the regulatory effect of the designation. While I do appreciate that the nominator limited the boundaries, we still actually have a problem with that setback that's proposed behind the building, and we would ask that any recommendation for a designation be limited to the building only. Even including that sort of a setback would affect our development plans. It would cause us to have to come back for grading changes to loading docks, changes to parking spaces. And those are things, again, as was noted earlier, we've already been through civic design review. This has been, we have a conditional zoning permit in hand, and this development is underway. And we're not looking to slow that up, as we've been in close conversations with Ridge Park, with the community. And so that really is the extent of what we'd be requesting, is that box that you see there, the black box, really just be reframed and limited to the actual exterior boundaries of the building without any setback. If that were the case, we would have no opposition to this, to the nomination, and we defer to the staff's recommendations and findings.
Thank you. And then thank you for your brevity. Appreciate it. Or your focus, I guess I should say.
I don't know if I could promise the same in June, but for now, yes.
Oh, it's okay. Different venue. Then I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and invite anyone from the public to speak to the nomination. And we do have one hand raised, and I would invite anybody else who wishes to speak to please raise their hand so that we can call on them and hear from you. Excuse me. Okay, why don't we go ahead and hear from Paul Steinke?
Good morning, everyone. Paul Steinke, Preservation Alliance for Greater Philadelphia. I would like to add our voice to Ms. Feldman's and also the nominator, Oscar Beiser, in promoting and supporting criterion H in this case. Now, we know it only takes one criterion to fulfill the nomination requirements, but I do think this is an important one. The nomination says the building occupies a highly visible corner site, that's true, along a sloping topography where its elevated base and expansive horizontal massing create a commanding presence within the surrounding landscape. And I don't know about you all, but whenever I drive up Umbria, or anyone who walks or bikes it, has to be struck by this building. It does have a commanding presence. And it also has what the nomination says is a terracotta parapet sign reading Manayunk Plush Manufacturing Company, instantly identifying what the building was. Although I had to look up what plush manufacturing was, which I did do after I saw this recently again. So on those two bases alone, I think criterion H is more than justified. And I hope the committee sees it that way as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else is there anyone else who would like to comment? Please raise your hand so that we can call on you. I'm not seeing any other hands. Okay, I think we will now move. Oh, now we have one person who's logged in as Gary and Peggy. If you could please give us your full name and whatever you would like to say. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Gary Mueller. I live at 4851 Umbria, just a few doors down from the building. I walk, drive, cycle past this building multiple times every day. Um, and I would agree that it is a very significant part of the neighborhood's history and is a very strong presence in the neighborhood for criterion H, I think it is. I'm new to this process, so not very familiar with all those designations. But I just wanted to add that in support of what's previously been said.
Thank you very much for your comment. Is there anyone else who has not yet spoken who would like to speak? Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I think we will close that portion of this nomination review and move to a committee discussion.
Well, as a proud resident of what used to be known as West Manayunk,
I didn't realize that.
I'm certainly familiar with this building, although it's on the other side of the river. And this was a very strong nomination. And certainly my one question, and again, it may not be pertinent, but is I'd love to know more about this shift from multi-story factory buildings to a one-story factory building. I suspect it has to do with the size and weight of the machinery. But it's not really explained. Actually, the previous nomination sort of explained building function or the interior functions of the buildings a little more clearly. So I'm just curious as to, the point is made that Manayunk's factories had been multi-story, the older, and then there's a shift. And I wonder if it has to do with Fordist processes in the early 20th century, and it's relevant because it is, the point is made about this being a one-story building. I'm just curious. Oscar, can you help me with that?
And I'm sorry if this wasn't explained more thoroughly in the nomination, but these really were designed specifically for the use versus, let's say, a tenanted mill where you might have had multi-stories and only one or two floors were used by the manufacturer, and then they used the other, they sort of rented the other parts during leaner times. This was literally designed for the manufacture of plush, and so it had that long. It had a clear story along the top that's gone now. So it's it's a linear production cycle. So not only is that, but it also was like this was like a period where they were very into like the daylight, getting all the daylight into the space that they could. I mean, even when they designed houses, it was a similar kind of. I mean, they had different sort of reasoning behind it, but this sort of speaks to all of the technology of the time and designing a building that, and like how they put that sign, this was designed for that purpose. And I mean, I don't know if I could say anything more, but they were so sure of it that they put a permanent sign across the front of it and didn't have extra stories in mind because there was a little bit of a tiered parapet that went up with the clear story across the top. So I don't know if that helps, but it definitely was purpose designed.
Thanks.
If I could just add to that, having done the nomination for the Wild Brothers Mill in the opposite direction, it's really is about the
and thank you for that, Susanna.
You're
for
welcome. It is about the production, but also the movement of goods. One of the interesting things about the Wild Mill was that there was actually a slide inside the building for them to just slide stuff from one floor to the next. So it just made the movement of goods and everything else easier. So you just kind of start production at one end and move right down the building. The final good goes out the other end.
That's the reason for my mention of Ford.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Dyer was a major competitor of the Ballinger Company, and I'm not as familiar with Dyer other than his name does show up in many, many places. But Ballinger actually offered the services of planning the processing in your whatever your manufacturing organization was, and they would sit down with you and plan that before they actually planned the building. That was one of their selling points. So whether Dyer advertised for that or was involved in that, it was certainly common at that time, for the architects and engineers to consider the process before just designing a building and saying, hope your work fits into here.
That was where my question was coming from, since I was interested that, his emphasis was really on engineering.
Mm-hmm.
His background was on engineering, so I was interested in that. Yeah,
I've never seen an architect that had a billboard before.
I think Dyer, I also did a nomination for the American Standard plant in outside of Trenton, and I think I'm sure that Dyer, like Ballinger, they had to have knowledge of the process because the building became the machine.
Right.
Exactly. It was very integral. Maybe not so much with the mills because, it was mill machinery that kind of, you could take the machinery out. It was just the way things moved around. But in the pottery, it literally was the way the building was built.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Right. I don't know, Oscar, was there something else you wanted to say in connection with this point, particular amplification? No. Okay.
I could only briefly add that I'm very sympathetic to Criterion H. I think it is a feature of the neighborhood that is really tying the identity of the building to the neighborhood's history.
I don't think you could pass this building without noticing it, just because the fact on your face, whether you're walking, even, speeding by the way I would at, 40 miles an hour, I still always notice it.
Slow down.
I know.
I do have to say
my point.
I do have to say that I didn't quite see the ziggurat mentioned somewhere deep in the nomination. Maybe a robot's head, but I didn't quite see a ziggurat there.
No, I don't think I did either.
I also want to say Mr. Phillips, it's so nice to hear you say that your client is in favor of the nomination. I don't personally have a problem with the changing the boundary. I thought it was nice to see that the client actually was keeping the buildings at any rate. So
yeah, before even they didn't know about the designation, or this really caught them off guard. But when we looked at it, we're like, well, we're saving these two buildings anyway. We're incorporating it. The client really did like that aspect of the development. So with that shift, it was something that I think we're still in line with the community and excited for this project.
I think it's great. I applaud your client for doing that.
And I think I mean, I understand. I appreciate you're not wanting us to tread into those waters in terms of the boundary question, but I think it's appropriate for us in the sense that, um, a bit. This is a different type of building. This is my opinion. So my fellow committee members are more than welcome to disagree with me. But we're not talking about a freestanding house that should be surrounded by a lawn. Manufacturing buildings often were connected to other manufacturing buildings. The tight quarters is something that, and practicality is something that in terms of a building envelope is for a buffer zone around a building. A manufacturing building is a different thing from what it would be around an institutional building or a residential building. In a semi-suburban context. I think that's a different thing. So I think I agree with Susanna. I think the question of tightening a buffer zone around this building is not something that's inappropriate because of the history of the building type and the way industrial buildings and industrial complexes changed over time all over the city. But others may disagree. And I would invite anyone who does disagree to please voice their opinion.
I don't see an explanation for the setback as described in the nomination. Is that?
I mean, the current buffer?
Yeah, why it's
As proposed.
particular size and not 6 inches one way or the other. I'm just looking for an
It
explanation.
looks like a line that was drawn off the corner of that building to the northwest.
Yeah, which is non-contributing.
Right. I mean, I don't think we have to draw a boundary at this meeting. I was just speaking in general terms.
Right. Yeah, my point only
I
being
mean, that's my thought anyway.
No, I would support your point, Emily, just for the points you make and because the nomination doesn't really explain the buffer that is drawn.
Yeah. Oscar, do you have an explanation for the buffer as is currently drawn?
Just that I was asked to draw a line around the part of the property that has been designated.
Okay. All right.
That's a
you're breaking
normal,
it very badly.
sort of a normal amount of space. It's not, it's not set in stone.
Okay. All right. I think at this point we should move forward to a motion.
Actually, Emily,
Did Ms. Feldman have-
Cheryl Feldman.
Yes, I see, Ms. Feldman, you have your hand raised, and I think we've been asking Oscar specific questions, and that's why he's been responding. But I think we have an answer to the questions we've asked. If you want to make an additional comment, I will invite Mr. Phillips to make any additional comment he would like. So if you want to go ahead, Ms. Feldman, you may, but I'll also invite Mr. Phillips to say anything in addition that he would like to.
All I wanted to comment was that we did not really discuss in detail with Oscar what the boundaries would be, and we have no opposition at all to tightening the buffer.
Okay,
None.
thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you for that. Mr. Phillips, is there anything you would like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we will then proceed to a motion if someone would like to make one. Before we do that, I would just say that I want to voice my support also for H.
Well, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
As soon as I can find the what I'm motioning. The Designation Committee recommends listing of 4889 Umbria Street, the Manioc Plush Manufacturing Company nomination to the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places under criteria for designation E, H, and J, and that we have no objection to a modification of the boundary on the rear elevation.
Would someone like to second that? Do we have discussion?
Is there a need for discussion of criterion E?
I think there is.
I was gonna say, yeah. Did you hear
I
my
think there's,
hesitancy when I read it?
Bruce, I think you're probably the person who knows most about Dyer. I really don't know very much about Dyer, and if I don't know if Jeff.
He's not as famous as the Ballinger Company, but the amount of work that he did in Philadelphia, I think I don't have a problem with criterion E. And there were a handful of firms that were doing this kind of work. So I don't have a problem with criterion E.
Okay.
I think Dyer was important. I wish the nomination had included more about him.
Yeah, I'm on the fence personally. I don't feel like I know enough.
Yeah,
he ends up in Buffalo too. Why didn't you know?
Worthy. Yeah, I think he was. We need to know more about him. I think he probably did influence the environment a lot more than we know.
Yeah, but I don't know that. But we don't know that at this point.
Yeah,
Well, and he seems like he's pretty prominent in the field, and it'd be nice to have somebody next to Ballinger to understand that there's somebody who plays a role like that in industrial buildings.
Yeah.
So I'd support E as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with E.
Do you want to take
All right.
Do you want to restate your motion, or did you already get it?
I think my motion stands.
We have a motion. We have a motion on the table. The question is, would someone like to second it, and then we can proceed to whether we're going to do a vote or unanimous consent.
So E, H, and J.
Yes.
Second.
Okay.
Do you want to do a vote?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that? John, would you like to do a roll call? Could I ask you to do that?
Certainly. In no specific order. Committee member Cohen.
Aye.
Committee member Laverty.
Aye.
Committee member Baruco.
Aye.
Committee member Milroy.
Aye.
And Chair Cooperman.
I'm going to abstain because I just feel like I don't quite know enough about Dyer. But I could be convinced, but I am not at this juncture. So I'm abstaining.
The motion carries the vote of 4-0 with one abstention.
Okay, thank you very much, and for the motion passes. All right, well, thank you all for your participation, your contributions today, and thanks again to the nominators, to the staff, and to everyone who participated. Thank you all. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Emily.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.